Baiju, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I think we both spent a lot of time driving around looking for parking, so it's nice to kind of be inside of that.
Yeah.
We heard a little bit about your background, but I'm hoping that Robinhood's a free stock trading app. I think most people know that, but I'm hoping you can tell me a little about where that came from, how you decided to develop that, and sort of what the background was there.
Absolutely. So Robinhood, our mission is to make the financial system more accessible for the rest of us, to make the financial system one that systematically costs less and makes it so that it's more useful to people independent of how much money they have. There's this tiering system that traditional financial services has done for quite a while, where as you get wealthier, it becomes cheaper to be a part of the system, and as you have less money, it becomes more expensive, and there's some threshold where most financial services companies just straight up won't do business with you. That's the broad category of problem that we're solving. We've launched quite a few products now over the last few months, in addition to stock trading. So Robin lets you buy stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptocurrencies now, all with zero commission and with no account minimums.
How do you guys make money if you're not charging any commission?
So this is the interesting thing about Robinhood, is that we make the business work through a combination of systematic cost cutting as well as making money off of a variety of ways that actually don't cost the consumer anything. So we do things like we collect interest on cash and securities that our customers hold on the back end, and we have a paid version called Robinhood Gold, which is a margin facility. So we'll lend money to you, and you can, for example, borrow $2,000 from us for $10 a month.
Now, we were chatting about this a little bit on the phone, but when you were going around trying to raise money to start a company, how much pushback was there that you were getting from investors on offering these trades for free?
We were getting a lot of pushback. I think my co-founder, Vlad, pointed this out a few months ago. Is like, we got turned down about 70 times when we were raising money. And I was like, that's a really big number. And we went back and counted, and it was like 77 times or something like that. I was like, maybe I just blocked a little bit of that out of my memory. But
what did that do to you? Like, how did that affect you? Did it make the product better? Did it make you better?
I think it gave us a lot more fire. It gave us the feeling that we had a really big chip on our shoulders and we had something to prove. So the interesting thing is that when we were first pitching Robinhood, we got pushback on the business model, although I would say that was actually a relatively small part compared to the pushback we got on two things. One of our core theses was that if we made this free and if we made it mobile, it would attract a new generation of consumers. That was more of a gut call from us, because Vlad and I are, of a younger generation than people had traditionally been investing in the stock market, and we had, through the course of living our lives and being young people in this country, we'd seen what our peers were thinking, and most of them felt pretty disenchanted with the system, the financial system, but we thought that we could change that, and most investors kind of didn't think that was going to happen. And they also didn't think we could build good mobile products. And that was something that we kind of were like, yeah, we're going to prove you guys wrong on this one.
Why were they saying you couldn't build good mobile products?
I think at the time our background was more technical. It was kind of the main thing.
So was there a lot of pressure for you to bring on an additional co-founder or something like that from investors when you were starting out?
Not really. But I think there was just like much less interest in the product until we showed that we could build something that was really high quality consumer experience. And when we launched that original waitlist for Robinhood back in the end of 2013, that's when we were like, look, we can actually do this really well.
Yeah. Can you talk to me? You mentioned several of the tools and services you guys offer. Can you talk me through what some of those are in a little bit more detail? And I would like to eventually get to cryptocurrency, but because it's been an interesting few weeks. But maybe you could tell me a little bit about what you can do besides just trading stocks on there.
Yeah. So what we try to do is we try to be a platform that lets consumers get access to more and more of the financial system as time goes on. So by being a broker, we allow consumers to deposit money, withdraw money from their bank account. It's free, it's seamless. You can use it to buy and sell stocks, which is any single one of the over 10,000 publicly traded companies in the US. you can buy and sell literally every single one of the ETFs, which are basically mutual funds on the stock market. So you can buy Vanguard ETFs, you can buy the S&P 500, you can buy the Dow Jones Industrial Average, you can buy all these things. You can also, as of a few months ago, start investing in options. So you can
explain what that is, if you don't mind, because not everyone's going to know.
Yeah, and this is something that problem space that we're pretty excited to solve. So options let you, so with Robinhood, you can buy and sell calls and puts. So those are basically agreements to say you think the price of something is going to go up to a certain price, or it's going to go down to a certain price, or you think if it goes below a certain price, you want to make money, or if it goes above a certain price, you want to make money. So options are very powerful tools. I think our product is going to do a really good job of explaining them to consumers. And then the last thing that you mentioned is obviously cryptocurrencies. So this month we're rolling out zero commission trading for Bitcoin and Ethereum. And we have listed market data for 16 other cryptocurrencies on Robinhood. So pretty excited about that.
So let's say that I sign up for Robinhood. I can't just go and dive right into options, right? You do a little bit of customer education. Can you tell us what that is and why you're doing that?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we look for before letting consumers trade options, because they are more complicated, is we look for how much experience you have trading stocks. Have you traded options before? And we look for, if you haven't traded options before, we look for a significant amount of experience that you have with trading stocks before you get started.
What does that mean? Sorry to interrupt you, but like, what would you consider a significant amount of experience?
So we look that you've made a significant number of transactions. So I think I have a few transactions at the very least.
And if I'm like really bad at it, would you stop me from going into?
We generally don't try to take that position when letting people get a part of the system, because it's kind of a can of worms, because there's a lot of subjectivity to that. What we more look for is what you report as your years of trading experience. I think that's the main thing that we look at, and that's something we look for you to tell us truthfully. Okay. So if you tell us that if you've done it, we'll let you start using the product.
Okay. And tell me a little bit more how the cryptocurrency stuff works on Robinhood. You can buy Bitcoin, you can buy Ethereum. Can you do anything else besides just buy and sell on there?
So those are the first things that we're rolling out, and we'll have some more information on that in the next couple of weeks to show off what the product looks like and a few other things with it. But the idea behind launching cryptocurrencies on Robinhood are, number one, it's something that we've been looking at for quite a while. And I think going back as early as maybe like 2001 or 2011, not 2001, Vlad and I were pretty interested in cryptocurrencies. I think there was a weekend where we took a GPU we had and we mined a few coins on it. And then we proceeded to throw that hard drive away.
Great.
But we've been watching it from a distance and had the idea that if this ever got to the point that it was having mass market appeal, it had the potential to fundamentally realign the financial system and be a conduit for a massive transition of power from institutional finance to consumers. And that's something that sort of philosophically was really interesting to us. It was adjacent to what we were doing, and so we kind of had the let's wait and see if this is going to become a thing mentality. And kind of beginning of 2017, we're like, look, we've seen cryptocurrencies have a resiliency where there's a lot of interest in 2014, then there was some waning of interest, and then this past year there was interest building again, and we were like, look, this has the potential to be a really big driver of change. We want to be there to help set that direction for where it goes. And at this point, we've been working with the establishment financial system for nearly 5 years. We have a really good idea of what the regulatory landscape looks like, and we think that we can actually be a really positive market participant if we do this. So bringing a lot of the learnings that we have from our equities business to this.
And do you feel that people should be doing investing in crypto as a long-term investment, or is it something that you think people, or that you would encourage people to be trading regularly?
So we don't we generally try to stay away from saying, this is a good strategy or that's a good strategy. Legal and regulatory reasons are obvious ones. I think it's also, we find it to be like a relatively presumptuous way of talking to our users. And we philosophically try to be a little bit more neutral and just like, here's a platform to use it, here's the lowest cost way of using it.
Do you have a personal belief then?
That's a good question.
Let me ask you, are you holding any cryptocurrency?
I'm hodling a little bit, yes.
Okay.
But I have a pretty small amount.
So when you guys launched this, it was I don't remember the exact date, but Bitcoin's been having this enormous run up all of 2017. You launched it just in time for that to basically stop. What was that like? I mean, 'cause I read a Bloomberg story, I believe it was, that talked about how much you guys sprinted towards getting that done. What was that like to launch this product that you're trying to empower people to have this access to this this resource, and then have that resource basically start creating?
It was, to be totally honest, it's kind of a non-factor. I think we had enough discussions leading up to it where we're like, we could be entering when there's a bull market for cryptos. We could be entering when there's a bear market. Does that really matter? Not really. In any case, like this is still the early days of something that's gonna, I think, be a much bigger part of the financial system in the next couple of years. And whether we enter in a bull or bear market is kind of, I mean, it's like equivalent to trying to time the market to buy or sell.
Yeah.
I personally am not much of a day trader, so I think I try to take a longer view of this stuff.
Speaking of that, I think one of the, you've heard this before, but one of the things that's the conventional wisdom about investing is that you should basically buy stuff and hold it and not react to the market, and everything's great as long as you basically aren't trading. Which is kind of a weird thing, right? You should trade by not trading. For most of the time you guys have been in existence, the Dow's been steady climb up, the stock market's been going up and up. We've now entered a period where it's going to have more volatility, where there are going to be more ups and downs. How do you feel about that conventional wisdom, and how do you feel about criticisms that have been leveled at you guys that basically say you're going to cause people to lose money?
Both very fair points. So the first one was on, you need to remind me the first point again?
Well, I think basically I would like to know, like, if you buy into that conventional wisdom that
you should be trading. Yeah. So there's a couple of things there. The first one is there have been some prominent studies done in the 80s that said, active investing, people that are buying and selling tend to underperform sort of passive investing, buy and hold. If you actually read that paper, there's a pretty big caveat there, is that the difference between the returns of both of those are driven by transaction fees. When you get rid of transaction fees and you reevaluate this when markets are much tighter, there isn't clear evidence that on a macro scale one is doing worse than the other. The viewpoint that we've taken is that in order for take a step back. The viewpoint that we've basically taken is that we look at the generation of consumers that are using Robinhood, of which now there's well over 3 million people that do. We see a couple of things. One, we see employment rates are incredibly high. Two, we see saving rates are the lowest they've ever been. Like, we are a generation of consumers that are making money, and we're basically spending all of it on a monthly basis and on a yearly basis. And like, what's happening there? Why are we doing this? And I think the real clear thing here is that consumerism in our society works really, really well. It's very easy for people to spend all of their money.
There's lots of things on Amazon that I love.
I love Amazon. I love buying stuff on Amazon. I love buying stuff online. And we have a product problem here, right? Which is that investing is not as much fun as using stuff like Amazon. And so you have a generation of consumers that are just like really, really intense consumers. And our viewpoint on it is, rather than framing investing as this thing that's, like a really serious thing to do, or something that you should really, really think 10, 20, 30 times before you do it, take a look at what you're actually talking about. If you're talking about investing $100, $200, $300, $400, $500, $500 is kind of like the median deposit that we see in Robinhood. What are you doing there? This is a decision that you should probably decide to do relatively early in your life. Especially if you're younger, your earning potential over the long haul is like, most of that earning potential is ahead of you. Investing $500 and saying that the market has the worst cratering that we've seen in the last 50 years, which would be like 2008, you would have lost about 40%. You would have lost about $200. Is the fear of losing that $200 really worth waiting an extra decade or 2 decades of the establishment finance basically telling you you shouldn't get started doing this? We don't think so. We think that if we make the stakes much lower, we make it really easy to get started, and we make the process of investing something that you actually want to do, that by and large we'll see a shift of consumers wanting to invest in the stock market, wanting to invest in the economy, and by and large that's just a healthier state. So that's kind of like the broad strokes view that we have. We realize that the market has been going up over the last couple of years. I think it's on the backs of a really strong economy, and that's obviously something to celebrate. And I think that along the way we'll see dips, and we saw one a couple of weeks ago. We've seen one a couple of years ago.
Let me ask you, did you see a dramatic shift in your customers' behavior last week than what you normally see? Was there a lot more trading? How did people react?
So we've seen a pretty interesting thing every time the markets have had a little dip like this. And there was another one that happened, I think in 2016 around this time of the year, where we see corrections in the markets. Brexit was another one. And the first few times we saw a market adjustment like this, we were relatively concerned. Like, we didn't quite know what was going to happen. And what we saw was that, one, those were the days that we had the largest deposits that we had ever seen, and those have been the days that we saw the biggest account growths. And so, by and large, our consumers are viewing this as an opportunity to buy at a discount.
We're out of time here, but I want to ask you one more question before you go. Yeah, because it seems like it went by really fast. Yeah, thank you. But your parents are immigrants. Your co-founder's parents were both, I believe, were immigrants. So co-founders as well. How important is immigration to Silicon Valley into driving the type of culture and the type of innovation we see here? And I'm trying to get all this in one question. And do you think that climate has been changed in any significant way?
I think it's not really relevant at all for Silicon Valley.
You don't think immigration is relevant at all? You're joking.
Yeah. I think it's completely central. I think that we have an incredible brain trust from around the world that we built in Silicon Valley on the backs of immigration. Like, as somebody that grew up with the possibility of having to maybe move back to India, growing up in America was something that I felt very lucky to have, and I wanted to make the most of that opportunity. And I think that's a very commonly held viewpoint by people that see being in America is like, somewhere between a huge privilege and, wow, I'm lucky to be here. Let me make the most of it.
Is the rhetoric coming out of DC having a negative effect on, that you've seen on companies in the Valley being able to recruit and attract talent?
I'm not sure that I have a great viewpoint on how the broader Valley is thinking about that, but I can tell you that within Robinhood, there is pretty strong patriotic streak. Our explicit mission statement is to democratize the American financial system, and we see ourselves as stewards of this really big part of our society, and bumps will come and go. I think it's the resiliency that is going to make a difference in the long haul, and we plan on being around for a while.
Baiju, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks.